I've been meaning to interview your band for a while, mainly because there are not many bands that are openly Christian. Because I've been working on a book, and out of the 450 active bands that I could find on Metal Archives, only maybe 60 done the interview. But anyway, this interview is not for that book, so it's just that it's not very common, let's say, in nowadays to meet a band that is open for that kind of thing. Yes, thank you very much for taking your time.
That's okay. It's a pleasure.
Right, so where do we start? Let's start with your new album, Pentecost, I think it's called, or Sacrament.
Sacrament, yeah.
It is the fourth, right? Because from your discography, it looks like they follow some kind of chapter.
Yeah, it's the fourth album, yeah.
So fourth album, fourth chapter. Tell me how this chapter or naming or numbering started, please.
I don't think there's a lot of thought behind it.
Okay.
I think that obviously the first album was called Prelude, and that felt like a bit like you sometimes have a preface in a novel, like an introductory, and it felt a bit like, well, what does that's kind of like chapter one almost, maybe. I just started to think along the lines of chapters and things. And obviously there's bands like Led Zeppelin. They've always been a big influence. So I kind of liked it. It was kind of quite. It's one of I often like things that are like outdated that no one does anymore, and then I think, oh, I'll do that because no one's doing it. That I think's cool. So I like that Led Zeppelin had these kind of chapters of their albums and kind of stole it from them, really, to be honest. It's kind of an English rock band thing to do, so it felt right, really. So that's kind of how it mainly came about. It's just sort of continued for now. I'm not sure how long we'll keep going with it.
And so Prelude is the start, isn't it? But a prelude is a beginning, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Sojourn, what does it mean? Is it French?
Sojourn, yeah, I think it is French in origin. It means to kind of stay in one place. It's kind of, in context, it's journeying somewhere and then settling in one place. So it's kind of, we've journeyed from the first album and then we've settled and we've become you become a sojourner, and someone who sojourns in one place for a period of time. It's a bit like someone who's a foreigner to a land and they settle there. So it's a bit like that, really.
And Pentecost?
Yeah, Pentecost. I mean, that was just more summing up the lyrical content of that album. There was, I think, like the song "Spirit and Fire" really encapsulates the Pentecostal. I say Pentecostal and Pentecost is really the same sort of thing, but like the actual day of Pentecost in the Bible, that subject matter of the Holy Spirit falling on the early church. That's kind of the subject matter of a lot of the album. So it felt like the best title to sum up the entirety of the album. So,
and then now Sacrament, is it in reference of? I mean, at least in the Catholic Church there are 7 sacraments. Is it in reference to that?
Yeah, obviously my context is coming more from like the sacraments in the Anglican Church. So I don't have as much experience of Catholicism, but yeah, like the sacrament. My background with the sacraments. Obviously, I haven't. My main experience with kind of these quite religious kind of Church of England sort of Anglican kind of practices comes from when I went to a Christian high school, and so we had like a chapel, and we had the priory in our city, And so I kind of, that's where I picked up most of those kind of Church of England style of things. So I kind of, but then I think as a Christian, you understand the sacrament of marriage and the sacrament of baptism. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think some of them are the same in Catholicism. So yeah, it was coming from the context of, I think the main one is like baptism. I mean, I went to a Baptist church with my family. I grew up in a Baptist church for quite a few years before I got married. So, baptism, I got a good understanding of that. And that's kind of a sacrament that makes a lot of sense in the context of this album, the title, because baptism isn't anything special inherently, but baptism is like a physical act of a spiritual reality. So in many ways, this is just another album. It's just more music. It is just 10 new songs. It doesn't have nothing inherently magical about it, but the actual songs themselves signal to a higher meaning and a higher spiritual meaning to me. So that's why I called it Sacrament, because the songs, to me, it's yes, there's 10 new songs. The album 4, it feels like business as usual in lots of ways. It's the 4th time we've done this, but it actually means something. The music actually means something to me. So the idea of sacrament perfectly illustrates that in my mind, because here we are again, but like this music really means something to me, and it's it's a spiritual reality for me.
When I've done many interviews. I think I don't know how many interviews I've done, but Witch Hazel has come up a couple of times from bands that enjoy your music, but the thing that one band said, which stuck with me, was that I do enjoy Witch Hazel, like a band like which are Christian, but the music is great, the lyrics are great, but I don't have to believe in it.
Yeah.
And the thing which struck with me was why is believing important? Like to me, believing makes the thing more special and more worthwhile my time. Because if I don't believe it, then to me it doesn't mean anything. It's just like anything else, like a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? Do you know where I'm going with this, or
Yeah,
it's very difficult to articulate?
Yeah, and I think I know what you mean. Yeah, it definitely. I think there is a deeper connection to music that you believe in and that you feel a spiritual connection to. At the same time, I think you can connect to instrumental music. So I think there's a spiritual connection to music that doesn't have lyrics, so instrumental or orchestral music can be written by Christian and non-Christians. The way I see it is that music is a common grace, and all music points to God, because of the beauty inherent in music. So, but I do think that for me particularly, and I actually don't listen to a lot of Christian heavy metal, but I think just any Christian music inherently has more meaning because I connect to it, because I have a belief in it. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. At the same time, I'll listen to Black Sabbath. I'll see the immense, the beauty in the music, and I feel like it points to God, whether that's the intention or not. That's kind of my take on it, really.
I mean, it doesn't come as a surprise, I think, that music, like we use today, at least in the Western world, it comes from a Christian culture. It's not an accident, right?
No. I mean, that's kind of the. It feels like, well, it's you kind of in the Bible. That's the sort of God that we see in Revelation, where even in heaven there's music. It's very much, it's kind of Christian culture is kind of steeped in music. I mean, it's every Sunday you go to church, there's always music. It's kind of deeply ingrained, isn't it? I think.
So, are you practicing Church of England, right?
I mean, I don't go to a Church of England church. My church would be categorized as a charismatic church, which is probably the closest thing what people might say a Pentecostal church.
Okay.
but more multicultural. So it's not necessarily just a black Pentecostal church. It's just a multicultural. But most people say it's a charismatic movement. Again, like we have denominations. So there's a Baptist church and there's Church of England churches, and our denomination is more of a more modern organization called New Frontiers. But I practicing as in, I mean, I go to church, but I suppose going to church doesn't really make you a Christian, but it definitely helps. You kind of helps your journey, I think, to be around other Christians. It's a community in that sense. So yeah, I'm definitely very involved in my I see it as a church community and a family, if that makes sense.
Yes,
More
yes.
than anything.
No, I go to church. I'm Italian, so my background is Catholic, but I don't go like as a way to as a community. Unfortunately, I go to the one near where I work in Liverpool Street. I have a day job as well, in London. So I go just to calm my brain, really.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good for that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you go into a building, particularly these traditional churches and cathedrals, and they're just amazing places to be, aren't they? I mean, they're fabulous places and they're great just to be, and they do have a really good function. And I actually think that a lot of people, I don't really get on with a lot of organized religion, but I understand that some people find it really helpful to have structure and order, and I
Yeah.
get that as well. That's just not the sort of person that I am.
Yes, yes.
I'm a bit more chaotic, you know.
Same with me. So that's why I go when there's nobody there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because just a crowd of people. Even gigs, I don't go to gigs that often anymore. Just the crowd of people just makes me nervous. I don't know why. But I do go. I like it, and it's like you're going back in time, back in
Yeah.
history. Especially
Absolutely.
like you said, the ones which are very decorated and in tradition.
Yeah.
And I have another question regarding. Sorry, I have a question regarding the band name. What is Witch Whistle? Is it a real somebody that lived in the past?
Oh, so witch hazel is like a medicinal herb. So many
Oh, right.
people, so many people think of witch hazel in the modern sense of, because it really these days, if when people distill the herb into distilled witch hazel into a solution, it's really just a mild antiseptic for most people. That has that function. There's just like a slight healing properties, but kind of in medieval times, it wasn't considered it was considered something that had magical properties. So we're kind of coming from more of an old time perspective. It's nice to think of witch hazel as this magical thing. It's a bit like, when people name their band like First Aid Kit, or we're a remedy. The idea is that it's musical healing. It's a positive force and it's a helpful thing. So when you listen, the idea is that you listen to the music and have a sense of nourishing from it. So that's the idea with and kind of I've spelt it WYTCH to kind of, because that's the old English spelling, to kind of
Yeah, I've
put the
done it.
witch hazel in its historical context rather than this kind of, people use it for shaving in modern times now. So I've kind of, with the Y, it's old English now. So.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, have like the majority of rock or metal bands are like 100% secular. Some of them even call themselves like things like Satanist or pagan. And have you had any kind of comments or people like been funny with you guys or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, a few, but I would say, like, it's a strange thing with witch hazel, because I fully expected a lot of comments and I fully expected a lot of backlash and expected a bit of controversy. I mean, it didn't. The thoughts that there would probably be some backlash didn't kind of stop me wanting to do the band. Well, it didn't stop me wanting to write about the things I wanted to write about, but so I carried on anyway, expecting the backlash, and really not. We don't really get a lot. Like it's very rare, to be honest. We don't get a lot of backlash, at least not directly that we know about. You know, there's been the odd comment. I think there was like one the other day. It's not. It's very rare. So it's kind of very. It's kind of we're pleasantly surprised, really, and I do think it shows how open-minded the heavy metal community is actually, because they're willing to say, well, this is a bit different. Let's give it a go. It's a great it's a great scene actually. The fact that people literally listen to the opposite subject matter and that will actually give us a chance is really, really heartwarming actually. So yeah, I expected more, but we don't get a lot, to be honest.
But isn't it odd that like a Christian band is like the minority, like a very tiny minority? Isn't it strange?
Yeah, maybe. I think because, you know, like I said, I expected backlash. I think that some people who are Christians and want to make Christian music think, maybe I won't do that. I'll make secular music instead, because they don't want the backlash. And I think like well, I'm not really like that. I don't really kind of care very much about the backlash. That said, I don't really get a lot of it, so it's okay. But I think that Christianity's kind of been on a decline. I mean, we're also in a state of post-Christendom in that people don't go to church out of habit like they used to. You know, 100 years ago or whatever, or even less than 100 years ago. So people, you know, but now people go to church because they want to go to church. So we kind of know who's a Christian really now, which is kind of a positive thing in some ways. But then there's not that, you know. But I think it's better that people aren't forced or obliged to go to church. It should be a decision. But I think there's less church attendance and there's less Christians. I mean, it's still the biggest religion in the world, right? And I suppose there's probably more Christian music than there is Islamic music. I'm making a guess there. I think just because of the size of the religion, but it's probably just the size of Christianity versus the secular world reflecting in music. I mean, I don't really know the data,
Sure, sure.
but I know what you mean. It doesn't feel like there's very many. Like it's a very, very small amount, isn't there? Yeah, I don't know. I think particularly heavy metal, it's quite what's the word? Rebellious. So it doesn't always work, Christian music in a rebellious setting. Whereas we come from an old-fashioned style setting, so we're doing something a bit different.
There is I'm sure you know the band Sleep.
Yeah.
The original, I think it was the bass player, I can't remember. After he released the first album, he started to study Christianity, and he became an Orthodox monk.
Right.
And now he has a magazine called Death to the World, and he calls Christianity the last true rebellion.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
since I saw that, I started to think about it as a, you know, like you said, in metal, there's a lot of rebellion, but Christianity is really a religion of rebellion. Jesus was a rebel, like 100%. Like it turned the world around.
He did, yeah. I mean, yeah. Even I was reading the other day, some of the things that Jesus said in that culture was really quite shocking. I mean, like even the disciples were like no one is favored, you know, like slave or free, and even saying things like men or women, saying things that men and women are equal. I thought like the message of early Christianity is that men and women are equal. I found that like I read that the other day and thought that's so countercultural to the time. We think about that culture. Women weren't allowed to speak and work. It's so it really is kind of quite rebellious. Yeah, it is. But yeah, I think Alice Cooper said something similar to you know, like about how Christianity it's true rebellion. But yeah, it's interesting. I think there's also a sense of politics. You know, I don't really like to talk about politics very much,
No,
but
me neither.
I think that people equate, and then I understand why in many ways. People equate Christianity with right wing and conservative
Mhm.
politics, and I think that when in heavy metal, particularly and from my observation, I think that when they want to be rebellious, they're not necessarily being rebellious against Christianity. They want to upset right wing and conservative people. So
Mhm.
it's more of the politics that they are fighting against. And that must be quite fun, to be honest. You know, I think they're going on stage with a upside down cross and singing about
Mhm.
Lucifer in a positive way is probably upsets some conservative Christians, and that's probably a lot of fun. So I understand that,
Mhm.
you know, and for a political perspective. So yeah, there's more of the rebellion against politics, I think, comes into play a little bit.
But even in the Christian story, to separate church and state is written
Yeah,
in it is written in the story. So even these conservative, I think mostly are American. I mean, I'm not expert, but it feels like most of them.
it does. Feels that. Yeah, it's one of
So
those things we don't have the data, but it does feel that way, doesn't it? From what we see, that there's a lot of that in America.
because
That's very.
growing up in Italy, I never seen that. Like when I
No.
then moved to the UK, that's when I first experienced it, and I didn't know what it was. Like why are they like that? Like Christians throughout the world, they're not like that. Like if we look at the Christians like in the Middle East or in Africa, like the Ethiopians are not like that. The Egyptians are not like that. So it's like, why are they like this? It's very strange.
Yeah, it could be a cultural thing in America because obviously in America, they've just got such it's so commonplace Christianity, like on in the media.
Mhm.
It's very prevalent, and I kind of think it brings its own problems. I'm sure there's lots of good in there, but there's probably brings its own problems. I mean, my perspective, and I actually heard this from an American church that I respect. I can't remember what the church's name. I can't remember the name of the church, but a guy was preaching. He's like a really kind of Southern American guy, but he was saying that like Christianity is higher than your political opinion. It's more important. Politics pales into insignificance if you actually believe these things. He was kind of saying like it doesn't matter if the things that you believe are right wing or left wing. This message is more important. Don't lose sight of the kingdom of God is bigger than
Yes,
politics, a
yes.
much bigger thing. And so I really resonated with that because I kind of felt that way. He kind of put words to my feelings, and so that's kind of my mantra. I don't actually engage with politics very much at all
No,
anymore because
yeah.
it's just not important to me anymore. There's
Mhm.
more important things. So yeah.
Colin, I hope you don't mind asking me or having this kind of discussion. I hope it's been okay.
It's all right, yeah.
Yeah. One last question. One last question. When you do interviews, does does this kind of discussion come up? You know, these kind of topics. Do they come up?
Yeah, quite regularly actually. Most interviews, yeah, we talk about actually probably similar conversation
Oh,
to
okay.
when we're talking about kind of the when people say, "How do you feel about?" I get asked quite regularly, and I enjoy it actually. I really enjoy this specific subject. When people say, "How do you feel about playing with satanic bands?" or questions like that,
Okay. Okay.
so it's kind of a similar discussion.
Mhm.
So yeah, I enjoy it actually because you know I kind of play with these bands. I'm friends with a lot of these bands, and you know, I'm fans of a lot of these bands who you know are mildly satanic in lyrics and things like that. I mean, like we play with the band Satan quite regularly. We played with them 3 or 4 times last year, different shows. And we're good friends with the band and stuff. So it's a fun topic for me, really, because it's a reality for the band.
And you recently played. Sorry, I'm asking another question, but you recently played in the church. I saw a video.
Yeah, last year I played solo in so there's a Muscle Rock Festival in Sweden. There's a church down the road from the festival, where the festival's held, and I played some Witch Hazel songs on my guitar. We'd actually done that show before a few years prior, but with the band playing acoustic versions of the songs. So it's a really, really old church. I can't remember how old it is. It might be it's like 300 years. It's like really, really old. So yeah, it's a really special place to play a show.
Awesome. Thank you, Colin. I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me? Anything at all? Anything?
No, I think we covered everything there, I think. So
cool. I will keep you posted either directly or via Will or Andy.
Yeah, great stuff. Brilliant.
Thank you very much, and I'll wish you a good evening and all the best with the new.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey folks, thanks for watching this podcast. If you enjoyed this interview, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friend, your family, and your cat, and stay awesome. Don't forget to check out our store at www.headingmusicartwork.com. Ciao for now.